Has a doctor ever misdiagnosed you? If so, how did it affect you? In high school, my history teacher was misdiagnosed with cancer. I saw her go from depression to acceptance to anger in a span of 6 months. After she found out, I remember her asking the class if any of our parents were lawyers. I felt really bad for her. She was already thinking how to say goodbye to her 7 years old. When I was 15, my GP told my mom that the crippling pain below my sternum, the very upper part of my abdomen, was heartburn, and he prescribed antacids, ignoring the fact that this pain would literally have me on the floor in the fetal position crying. Heartburn. So of course the medicine doesn't work, and I deal with this pain several times a week for 4 years, until I'm 19 and deployed to Iraq. Thankfully my NCO wouldn't listen when I had an attack and told him it'd pass. He sent me to our clinic. They draw blood. It's pancreatitis, secondary to gallstones. They removed my gallbladder and it got much better. I still have rare acute pancreatitis that I believe is from the damage of 4 years worth of stones passing through my duct. That sucker. My dad was once told he had pneumonia when what he actually had was a collapsed lung. Vaginismus. Years of a PV sexless marriage before I brought my husband into the office because they kept dismissing and blaming him, or would say just relax. Got physical therapy for it and finally got it working. We started trying for a kid. Found out I'm infertile and almost out of eggs. My reproductive system is a troll. They kept dismissing me till it was too late. Grrrr, this makes me mad. So many doctors dismiss women's pain during sex. This is not normal and needs to be taken seriously. When I was 14, I was told I was pregnant after getting an ultrasound to check my kidneys due to high blood pressure. No pregnancy test, no questions. I was a young girl, so I obviously was pregnant after they found an abnormal mass. Ended up being a cyst. None of the doctors would listen to me when I said that I had never even kissed a boy before. The sad part of the story was that after the doctor told my dad and me that I was 10 weeks pregnant, and I adamantly denied that it was even possible, my dad actually stood up for me and took my side. The doctors then called my mom and accused my father of sexually assaulting me. Eventually I was sent to a women's hospital, and 2 hours later confirmed that I was not the Virgin Mary. Physically it didn't affect me, but I've been very wary of going to doctors since. Grossish alert: my grandmother went to the doctor for blood in her stool and he told her it was hemorrhoids. She asked him to perform some tests because she didn't believe it was just hemorrhoids. He refused and told her to come back if H medication didn't work. It didn't, and it turns out she had colon cancer. It was so far along by that point that she passed 6 months after her diagnosis. Round ligament pains from being 13 weeks pregnant. Turns out, no, it was appendicitis. Oh my, I hope they caught it before it burst. That must have hurt so bad. I went to an after diving to 12 feet. I heard something like a crackle, and pool water drizzling down my throat through my ear, and immense pain. Upon describing this to the doctor at the ER, he diagnosed it as an ear infection, a 0 to full-blown ear infection, which had nothing to do with the dive, the noise, or the fact that pool water has a very distinct taste when it runs down the back of your throat. At my ear specialist, who I saw as soon as possible, I was correctly diagnosed with barotrauma. The effect from the first doctor was unnecessary agony for 24 hours because he apparently didn't get paid enough to listen to anything beyond the symptoms. At least in the end, it was a full recovery. I went to the doctor with really bad food poisoning and he told me it was nothing and that I should eat something like digestive graham biscuits because I hadn't eaten for 3 days. Turns out that's the absolute worst thing you can do with salmonella, as it strips your stomach lining. It felt like I'd eaten a bunch of razor blades. I ended up in hospital for the pain and nobody told me what was wrong with me until after I was released. I would never have known if it wasn't for the phone call from the Center of Communicable Diseases. Oh my gosh, to even make things worse is awful. I hope it didn't have any lasting effects. Had lower back problems that also messed with my right leg since I was about 12. I've been told I had everything from spinal stenosis to it being all in my head. That was a fun one. The worst diagnosis was being told I had cancer based off of one of my MRIs. They told my mom over the phone and she immediately checked me out of school so she could be with me and break the news. She ended up breaking down in tears in the office when they had asked for the reason I was being checked out, and of course it spread like a wildfire through my school. It wasn't until about a month later we find out it wasn't cancerous. Oh dear goodness. I hope they have or will figure out the real cause soon. I couldn't even begin to imagine having that diagnosis given to me. I am very glad you do not have cancer though. Age 1. You have nerve damage from spina bifida that affects your bladder. Here, take this medicine and learn how to pee through a straw. Age 12. Oh, the medicine isn't working. Are you sure you're using it correctly? Age 16. Here, try ditropan again. Age 21. Here, try bladder botox. Age 22. Oh, hold up, there's something weird about your bladder. You also have a second ureter on your left kidney. Age 23. Yeah, you have a hole in your bladder that's probably congenital there. Since birth, wait 6 months and we'll get you in to get that fixed up. I've had multiple MRIs since birth and apparently the second ureter and the hole in the bladder was somehow missed. I'm still waiting for the surgery date. A psychologist I was seeing once gave me schizoaffective disorder, but walked it back to a temporary psychotic episode a few weeks later. Spent those few weeks in a state of shock and disbelief though. I was just not diagnosed. Horrendously painful periods from the age of 9. I could barely get out of bed or go to school. They were heavy as well. My doctor, an older man, told me and my mother to suck it up, that it was all part of being a woman. I was depressed and lived like this for 9 years, barely getting out of bed for a week, at least, a month, and missing heaps of school. Then I got pregnant at 17, which I now know is a miracle. Had my first ultrasound and my ovaries were covered in endometrial cysts. I tried to give birth naturally but all the endometriosis and scarring made it impossible, so I had a C-section. After my C-section, the endometriosis held onto my C-section incision, causing severe pain and unfortunately 2 more operations before that was cleared. I lived in severe pain for so long because my doctor thought periods should be painful. They shouldn't. If I had been diagnosed earlier, my body could have been prepared for pregnancy through DNCs and other procedures which would have made my pregnancy, birth and recovery much easier. Horrendous pain. Vomiting. A doc says that I have a lot of stool. I told the doctor that he wasn't the first person to tell me that I was full of crap, but that there was something else wrong. Another doctor says the same thing. I am becoming belligerent because of this nonsense and the excruciating pain. Third opinion, doctor orders CT. I had gangrene on my appendix and it was hours from rupturing. Midnight emergency surgery. 5 days in the hospital. If I went along with what they had initially said, I would be dead. Not a real misdiagnosis but a problem with the medicine I was prescribed. I had an eczema problem when I was a kid and my doctor gave me antibiotics and other medical creams to use. I used it for a couple of months and went to see her somewhat regularly to get updates, but my fingers never got better. I was starting to believe that I was gonna live the rest of my life with wrapped up fingers leaking fluid all the time. Then we went to another doctor who told us I was allergic to the antibiotics and should have been given something else. Went on Friday and by Monday my fingers were almost back to normal. Thank gosh it was treated properly and is better now. I couldn't imagine living with that for a short time, let alone forever. I went to the dentist for an annual checkup. She wasn't my main dentist. My family and I had been shopping around, but they'd seen her before and she seemed nice. The dental hygienist is looking at my x-rays after I'd just had them taken. DH. Do you have any pain by your bottom molars? Me. Number. DH. Are you sure? Me. Yes. DH. Okay. A short time later the dentist comes in. She goes through her routine but then she takes a look at my x-rays. Dentist. Does it hurt in the back? By your molars? Me. Number. Dentist. You're sure? Me. Yes, I'm sure. She could definitely tell that I was a bit miffed. I then said that I'd been asked multiple times already. I felt bad but I definitely didn't have any pain or sensitivity back there, and when they kept asking it really bothered me. However, she didn't seem convinced that I was fine and thought that I needed a root canal. My parents were in the waiting room, so when I was done she filled them in. On the car ride back I told my parents what I'd felt and they were a little bothered at the dentist's insistence. Some weeks after, and still no discomfort, I went back to my regular dentist for a second opinion, and he looked at my x-rays and said that I was fine. It's been about 4 years since, and I haven't needed a root canal. Not me, but my mom. A few months ago she was having this horrible pain in her lower abdomen, sides, and back. We put her symptoms into a symptom checker app, and one of the diagnoses it came up with was an ectopic pregnancy. For those who don't know what that is, it's when the embryo begins forming in the fallopian tubes. When this is the case, it's pretty much a guarantee the baby won't make it, and it puts the mother's life at serious risk too. Anyway, silly little symptom app. Who cares? A few days later, she went to the doctor and got her blood tests done. The doctor came back with the results and told her she was pregnant. My mom knew it wasn't possible to have been recently, so she starts freaking out that the ectopic pregnancy is the case. And that's exactly what the doctor thought too. Meanwhile, every nurse and doctor in the building was rushing around, freaking out, trying to get her to specialists, but they were too busy. So they started calling ambulances to rush her to the hospital. Amid all the chaos, the doctor approaches my crying mother and apologizes, saying he was looking at the wrong blood results. Blood results of hers almost exactly 3 years prior. She now has a 2.5-year-old. My aunt ended up having 2 ectopic pregnancies, since the doctor had said it was exceedingly unlikely for her to have a second one if they tried again. The second one nearly killed her. They ended up adopting after that, since she was unable to get pregnant again anyway. I was told by the receptionist at A&E that I should go home because it's probably a migraine. It was bacterial meningitis. Yeah, never listen to the receptionists. They always have ideas above their station. I was misdiagnosed as having pneumonia. Pneumonia would have been preferable. I left work early one day because there was an extremely sharp pain in my back just under my shoulder blade as well as just underneath my ribcage on the same side. I was also having difficulty breathing. I miraculously managed to drive to the ER. In hindsight, I'm aware it was a dumb idea, and got checked in. They gave me some non-narcotic painkillers, did some x-rays and ran a few other tests. The doctor came in after a while and said I had pneumonia, gave me a prescription for a Z-Pak or whatever it's called, and discharged me. I had just driven out of the hospital and got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered and they said they were from the hospital. They requested for me to come back as quickly as I could. Don't bother checking in, just go straight back to the room I just left. I went back into the room and the doctor told me that they had looked at my x-rays again. Turns out my lung had collapsed. They rushed a specialist in immediately, like 10 minutes, maybe, and were getting me prepped for surgery. Everything went pretty smoothly and everyone was extraordinarily nice to me. I'm positive everyone was so nice because there were definitely grounds for a lawsuit. I wasn't looking to get rich off anyone though, I just wanted to breathe again. I had extremely good insurance with the company I was with at the time. I paid $100 for the emergency room fee and the rest of the $17,000 bill was covered. So that was nice. While I was in there a shirt popped up on woot.com and I bought it immediately. It read, Lifetime Achievement Award for Breathing. Respiring since birth. I was in the hospital for almost not getting that very achievement. It was fate. I still have the shirt somewhere but I got fat and it doesn't fit now. I've been told that quite a few people visited me while I was in the hospital. I don't remember most of them. I was on a bunch of Dilaudid while I was awake. I do remember a buddy asking me how I peed with all the wires and monitors attached to me and responding simply with my penis. He looked at my mom and said he'll be fine. He's too much of an butthole to die. Overall, I would rate having a lung collapse as a terribly awful experience. You never really think about how much you breathe until you can't. It sucks. A lot. I am so glad they phoned you back so quickly and got you into surgery. Not being able to breathe sounds like one of the most painful things. This is Cato of Power. If you subscribe, your power level will increase by 64 levels. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.